All right, so we're going to have a quick, I say it quick, always say quick every time I start a video and it ends up lasting forever. So we're just going to have video and see how long it goes. We're going to go over how to use the slicing software that you would use to prepare your designs for printing on a 3D printer. So let's just pop right into this. All right, so we're looking here at Cura. Cura is probably one of the most used popular versions of a slicer. There's a bunch of different products that are out on the market. A lot of 3D printers who don't have their own slicer will default to Cura, or they might even have a special version of Cura for their particular printers. But that's kind of how that works. I'll give you a quick peek of this one here. Well, let's see if we just open. This is fine. So this one here is Bambu Studio. With Bambu Studio, this is a slicing program that is specific for Bambu Labs printers. And you can look up here in this corner where there's several printers that you can add. Not only can you have the Bambu Lab, but you can add some other printers as well, because it is just a slicer in its root form. It's just a way to create G-code. And we'll look at that in a second. So here we go. So Cura is another reason why Cura is the one for most people to go to is Cura is free, but it really actually performs really well. It is the industry standard and one that everyone uses. So we're going to use Cura, and you can download that for free onto your laptops and should be good to go. All right, so I'm going to pop over here and sign in real quick. All right. I'm signed in. If you sign in and you get any marketplace or add-ons, it's kind of nice because it continues on with you. So let's go across. Let's see how the best way to do this is. Let's go in here to preferences, just so you can see and configure Cura. This is kind of how you would start in the very beginning. Most everything here you can kind of leave at defaults. Some of the things that you're going to want to look at is printers. So in the section here under printer and over here, add a new printer, you would just pick the printer that you're using, whether it's an Ultimaker, which we don't have in the lab, or a non-Ultimaker, and then you could select the manufacturer, make, and model of the printer and add it to your list. So you see here I have two Anycubics that are listed, and that's what we'll use from so far. All right, in the materials tab, real simple, easy stuff. These are just, hey, what type of materials do I want to add to my list so that they're in my drop down when I go to choose from them. And I think if we look here in generic, these generics are already included. And let's come down here to this brand here that I don't have, and you can add these in if you choose to. You can create your own product, so you can click here and add create new. So in case you have something strange that's not listed to the left, you can put that in there. And we can also import settings, so that's kind of nice. Profiles. You're gonna come with a basic profile, and these are things like extra fine, fine, normal, draft. These are the ones that come with them with all of the Cura presets, and we'll look at that. You'll see it'll make more sense going down the road. I just want you to know that there's this custom profile, because if you end up really working on a profile and configuring it for a particular function, then you can save that profile. So in this particular one, this is a 30-degree wedge. So I made this special part, and it had some special print specifications that I wanted to add to the profile, so that's what I did. I created its own profile, so if I have to go back and reprint that particular thing, that's what I'm doing there. All right, just an overview of this stuff. Once you get in and start playing with it, you'll get to know it a lot better. Let's start here on the left and take a look at this first button here. This is just as simple as it looks. It's a folder button, and you can pop into anything that you created in wherever you have stuff saved. And let's take this one here. Okay, so this is one from a previous class. We'll just throw that drone in there. Once you've got your file here, now we can play with it, and we're going to go through quite a bit of things. So hang tight. Here we go. First one here is the printer. So I showed you before where we could add printers. You can also add and manage your printers here in this space, but this is where you would choose what printer you want to print this from. And then this is your material. What am I going to use? In the lab, mostly everything we have there is PLA, but we could be using a bunch of different stuff as you see here, many different types of filaments. All this is drop down and select. Now, I showed you back here in the preferences and settings how we were to add different profiles, and you can see this particular profile here is normal. So when you're a beginner, you're going to want to just use these and kind of stick with the defaults. So this one, select on normal. If you want real fine detail, obviously there's the direction you're going. When you go towards that extra fine, just know that it's going to slow down. Your print's going to take quite a bit longer, and then you can push on out to as far as extra coarse. This is just going to be really, really fast. So there may be some things that you need that are just fast, and you're okay printing them in a fast speed. There may be some times where you want to print them fast just to get a rough idea of what size it is. Okay, there you go. You can pick how you want to solve that problem there, and normal's a pretty good place to be. Now, I've popped normal, and this is actually kind of good because this is going to bring up everything that we've done in the past. So these are profile settings, these are the normal settings, and these are the current changes. So this means that I've changed the print sequence from printing all at once to printing one at a time. Anytime that you move between your profiles, you want to discard changes because you don't want to keep changes. You make that choice. The best thing to do is to discard the changes and then make the changes new. What happens sometimes is we get too far down the road where we've made a lot of changes and we're not real sure why we have a bad print. We're like, oh, I forgot to change that one thing that I did. So every time that I move between profiles, I discard the changes and start over for each of those designs. Now, here's one of the cool things that is really neat with this search. If we wanted to search something like support, then we can click on that search and find the support faster. So let's see if I do brim. We're going to get into brim, and here's skirt brim. Okay, so this helps us get to that point because as you can see, there's quite a few things that are there. It's not super Google Smart, like whatever you put in there. You have to put the exact thing. So for example, we'll do wall flow. So we hit wall flow and see how it pops up. If we did something different like just wall, there's too many things that are labeled wall. Wall line, wall thickness, wall count, and it gets wall flow. So you've got to kind of know what that is. And if it's something that you do a lot, then you'll end up memorizing that. Okay? All right. Now, we're looking at our design here, and we're going to look at layer height. You know what? I'm going to let's pop over to positioning first. All right, bear with me. So click on your design once, and I want you to look over here on the left. Oftentimes, you'll use this space first. when something comes in. And I want you to look here. I can grab and move this. This is helpful, especially let's say if I'm going to print 2 of these at the same time or one after another. And I'm going to bring in more components because you can always bring in more pieces. Okay. So that might be why I want to use the move feature, because I'm going to bring more pieces onto the plate. And you can do that. So especially let's say you're going to make a whole bunch of these rings, you can, let's just go ahead and do that instead of just talking about it. Let's bring in some more rings. Whoops. Okay, we're going to make some rings, and we're going to put these rings in here. And we may want to choose a couple of different things. If we're going to print them all at the same time, meaning that we're going to print this first layer, and this first layer before moving on to the second layer, third, and so on, then we're going to call that, we're going to want these close together so the travel is not too far. So let's just look at what this looks like. Let's see if I can get to it. Print. Let me have to roll down here. I'm going to look for print sequence. All right, so here's all at once. So let's look and see what that looks like. We're going to print 3 of them all at once. We're going to come to preview, and this is what's going to happen. There's your first layer, and then it's going to print them all at the same time. There could be some drawbacks. We may not want to do that because depending on what kind of material we use, sometimes some machines that aren't that great may have trouble those layers adhering once they've cooled off because you've jumped from piece to piece to piece. And in that case, you may choose to do one at a time. Now, when you do one at a time, you'll notice that these shading areas are overlapping. That means that the print head, when it rolls around to print that, is going to collide with the previous item. So this move tool helps us find 3 safe spots on the build plate that don't touch. And now we can slice and build one at a time. And when we go to preview that, see, we're going to print one at a time. So we're going to start with that one in the back. Print, print, print. So these tend to give us better prints when we print them one at a time. So we're printing multiple pieces, but one at a time. And the benefit for that is there's quite a bit of downtime. Once the printer finishes, and then you clean the build plate and you put it back up and it warms and it heats and it extrudes and it does all its little dances and get ready to go, you're duplicating that for each piece. And then of course that means you have to stay there while each piece is being printed. Okay. So people like to use this method of printing. You know, think about it. You want to put 4 or 5 of these on, however many you can fit, turn it on, go to sleep, run some errands, whatever you go do. This will keep printing multiples versus you sitting here waiting. Let's see here. This is 1 hour and 28 minutes. So let's go back. Now let's slice it. So 1 hour and 28 minutes. So it's pretty close to the same print time because it's 30 minutes a piece. But every 30 minutes, you're going to have to take it off, scrape it off, clean it, re-glue it, put it back on, and wait for the heat up time. And now you only have to come back once every hour and a half and do whatever you need to do in between. And there we go. All right, so let's go back over here and grab something else to bring into the picture to look at. Let's bring this drone back in here. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the next one here, which is scale. All right, so when we do scale, this is exactly what it sounds like. We're going to change how big or small it is. So we can duplicate this. So we just want one bigger. We simply duplicate it to make it bigger. And when we have uniform scaling, any one of these axes that we change, you notice how it changes them all. So most of the time, you're going to do uniform scaling. If you happen for some reason want to lengthen one direction, you can take that off and then just adjust that one. Good thing is here, there's always a revert, so you can go back to what it is. And then, of course, you can always make it 50% smaller. Most things that you find to print, most things will work and be scalable. They will work when you make them bigger or smaller. There are some things that don't scale well. So you're just going to have to experiment depending on what you're working on. All right, rotate, very simple. Doesn't do anything more than turn, okay? There are times where you may want to rotate a piece. Could be just for personal preference. Let's see here. Bear with me on my crazy designs. Seeing if I had a quick lithophane on here, but I'm not going to dig too deep. Let's go back and just grab anything we want. Let's grab this and open. And say for some reason you want to specifically watch this side, maybe you want to watch the other side, then we can select this and we can rotate it 180 degrees. Boom. Okay. So all it is a moving tool. And then I'm not going to get a whole lot into this because this is kind of an accelerated. I need to get something else on here to show that. It's kind of an accelerated move, but it's like being able to adjust supports. Let's try this. Let's see how this looks. Okay, so let's, first of all, we're going to have to scale this down. And then we're going to have to move this so it'll fit on this print bed. And then there's a space here. Now, I know what you're thinking. Hopefully you're thinking, why don't we just rotate this and lay it like that? And then it prints without supports, right? Well, I'm going to show you support. So you may get things that need to be set this way. You're just going to have to work with it. Let's do this. You're going to take this and let's rotate that back. I want you to notice in here that there's this feature that lays flat on a bed. That's going to be important because sometimes when you import something in, it may not be flat. Got to get it flat or it won't print right without supports. So last one here, let's just say we were to slice it and throw some supports on. Oh, we don't have supports clicked. So let's get in here, support and generate supports. I know I'm going fast, but we're going to go through that in a second. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to. So in the support blocker, we can block out an area. We can block out an area that we don't want supports to go. And that's what this square cube is. Wherever this cube is, there won't be supports. And then we can also add custom supports. And again, that's quite a different course on how to do that. But just kind of want you to know that they're there. So that way, if you want to mess with them and try to master what that is, you can. All right, we're going to come over here now to Let's get rid of this one. Let's do something else that might make better sense. Something like this. Okay. Now I'm going to turn this around so we can see it. Come on. Perfect. All right, now we're going to go through, from this Prepare tab, we're going to go through all these settings, and we're going to do it pretty quick. All right, quality. Quality is exactly what it means. And by the way, when you go into the marketplace, in the marketplace, you can buy things, and I say buy, they're free. All this stuff in here is free. You can get these add-ons that someone has provided to do a whole bunch of stuff. So this one here is a settings guide, and you can see that I have it installed. I like this one. There's one that comes with Cura. This one is a little bit more in depth, and what that piece is here, so just like this button, you would click install, but I've already got it installed. If you look here, when I hover over layer height, there's a whole class there on layer height. So as you look through and trying to find problems with your print, you're going to pop over here. If you go on the marketplace and get that one, so let me go back so you can see it. It's called Settings Guide by Ghostkeeper. It's the one I like. There are several out there. It's the one I like. It's pretty in depth, and I like it. It helps me to decide whether or not I want to adjust a particular setting. I wouldn't mess with these for a whole long time. The layer height is very important, and it's very relative to the size diameter that you have loaded on your printer. And just know that as we make changes in this tab under quality, it's really what changes how well our product is going to print. So think about a 0.4 millimeter, which is what the nozzle that I have on ours, our 0.4 millimeter. If we tried to make the line width larger or smaller with the same nozzle, we're going to have quite a bit of different outcomes. You can kind of look up here in this piece here where it shows this is what happens when you make an adjustment to line width. You see these line widths come further and further apart, and that's going to change a whole lot. It's going to change structure. It's going to change strength. It's going to change the way it looks. A lot of different things. So just know that these settings are here. Use these pieces to get to know them. For the most part, you will not mess with quality a whole lot in the very beginning. Walls. Walls is one that you can mess with. Walls is one that you can mess with quite a bit. I need something that can show walls. What is this? No. No and no. Let's find something else. Let's find this. And let's rotate this so you can see. Oh man, I messed that up, didn't I? Let's grab this and go 90. Wonderful. All right, this is perfect. So I want you to look at here. Let's go first of all and let's just slice it. All right, so we're sliced. Let's go through a preview, and now let's zoom in on these walls here. All right, I've taken the top layer off. I'm down into the meat of this, and I want you to notice there's this red and then this other right here that represents two different wall. The wall thickness is 2. Okay, I can't talk. Look over here into wall count, and you'll see that wall count is 2. Let's change that to 4. We have to reslice. And now look at our wall count. So I want you to notice that with 4, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, now 5, 6. The overall thickness of the wall is only 6 anyways. So if we did 3 wall count, so let's just do that. Let's do 3 wall count. And you look at it, it doesn't change because the wall count is how many layers of wall you want on each wall. So we go back to 1 so you can kind of see what that really looks like. 1 is 1. So if this was 100 wall thicknesses wide, then you would see, and you did it 5 wall count, right? You would see then 5 wall counts on either side, and then 90 wall spaces in between. And you would see that up here. Oh, you can't see it on that layer, can you? Oh, get out of here. Oh, now it's stuck. I broke it. Let's just take that back to 4. And slice it. And let's see if I can. There we go. Oh, it's not wanting to mess with me at all, is it? Oh, I'm seeing from the other way. That's my bad. All right. I was pulling the wrong button. All right, so what I want you to notice though, and you now, okay, so I can do that. What's the point? Well, the point is this. We're going to go back to 2. The wall count can really make a difference in your strength. So you look at these circles over here. Let's say those are bolt holes that you want to put a fastener in, and you really want to make sure that that fastener doesn't break through. You might decide to add 4, and then you look here, see how it has 4 layers? So now you have, these are all solid layers printed all the way through the entire thickness. You see that? You see how this cylinder is made here? So now you've made this bushing that goes from the bottom all the way up to the top, which adds a lot of strength to that cutout, that hole you put in. And so same thing on the outside. By you putting those layers, you've created a much stronger sidewall. Okay, let's move on. I want you to notice here that any change that we make, there is a revert, so we can always go back to the original settings. And anytime you make a setting change, it's going to ask you to reslice. That's about the only thing that I really want you to know how to use in your designs to start with, is the wall count. And don't mess with anything else there, but know that as you look through there, there's a bunch of other things. Now, if you look in this little settings button here, by default, a lot of this stuff is turned off. They may only give you 3 or 4 check marks. I go ahead and check everything because I want it all in there. But you don't have to see it all. You can, when you log on, you won't see as many that I have on yours. In order to see all the ones that I'm talking about, you're going to have to go in here and you're going to have to click on that little settings bar, and you're going to have to add those layers. Pardon me, had a quick drink. Okay, here we go. We're already so late, so I'm gonna keep pushing. Let's get through walls. Let's just hop on the next ones, top and bottom. So again, this is about layers. We talked about the wall thickness. Now these are going to be layer thickness. So we have top layers as set as 6 and bottom layers set as 6 as well. So what that means is when we come down here, see how before we get that cross, right? That's 6. So look at this number here. That's 6. So these are all identical, 100% infill, laid in place, 6 layers. Let's look at that. And so this is bottom layers. And again, start thinking, why would I need to change that? Depending on the strength that needs to be for you, you may choose to add more. So why don't I just print it with no infill? All right, well, hopefully that's a little bit obvious that if you have 100% fill, your print times are going to be through the roof. They're going to be forever. If you look at period, notice I've only got 10% infill. So the infill is the amount of filament that's put in those dead spaces, so after the bottom 6 layers, and that's the percentage of how much that is. If you just do everything at 100%, then you're just printing a big solid block, and that may be a part that's now too heavy, too brittle, takes too long to print, a bunch of different reasons. So there we go. We've jumped up to 25 layers, and you can see now. You can see now how big that bottom layer is. Okay. So just know that the two that you'll probably mess with the most here is the top layer tab and the bottom layer tab, where you may increase or decrease those really based off of what you're looking for. Okay, sorry. Here we go. Let's not do too much more there. Let's look at infill. So we're going to just jump really crazy to 100% infill, and we're going to slice that, and we're going to show you what that looks like. So these were the layers. These were the layers and infill density. I'm going to reverse that. That didn't quite perform the way it should. Oh, I didn't put the top layer. So here's the, let's look at this. That's why I was like, wait, it didn't make a change. Let's make this change here. Let's slice it. Okay, here we go. Now, if you notice, there's no infill. It's just 100% solid block. If we change this to 50%, so you can kind of get a see what that looks like. All right, now if you look at the cross patterns, that's the infill. This is just the space, so it's not hollow. And depending on what you're going to use this for, I need it lighter, I need it heavier, I need it more breakable, I need it less breakable. Yeah, sometimes you want something that's actually sheer. You want something that will break if that's what it's meant for. So a lot of different reasons why you would change that infill density. We're going to just leave it at 10%. That's what you would use the most. You might find, and I'm not going to get into this argument or this discussion because it's really just trial and error. There's a whole bunch, as you can see, all these different patterns. And if you go through and read on these patterns, they'll tell you all kind of different scenarios that you're going to use them for. For example, strongest pattern by weight and printing time. Approximately equal strength in every direction, including the vertical direction. You might look at one here that says produces the most flexible prints with a very weak and even strength in all directions, all horizontal directions. So, depending on what you're making and how you want it to perform, will make the difference in what you put in there. So, we're just going to talk about here's where they are. You have to read and find the one that works best for you. If you change it to something crazy, just know you can go back to infill pattern where Cura has already made a determination. They think this is the best. All right. We're going to jump over to material. Your material settings were set to the material selection that you picked here at the top of the screen, and that's what changes these settings. You may find that some printers need to print PLA at 210, so you're going to raise that to 210. You may buy a particular product that has sparkles or glitter in it, and it may need to be at 220 in order for it to print properly. So mostly what you need to know about material is this is going to change how you print, and there's a bunch of print settings that you can adjust those print settings for more things than you can dream of. Just mess with this one here, the printing temperature. That's the main one that you need to do as a beginner. Okie doke, almost done. Speed. Print speed, leave alone. If you happen to have a printer that can reduce speed, if you want to make your print prettier, okay, you want to make it more detailed, less mess ups, you slow it down. The idea is to find that happy balance between how fast you can print, at what speed. For now, stick with the defaults, but know that you can adjust that speed as you need to. Well, you can see here's a good difference where you see that in the infill, your infill is super fast, all right? And your print speed is 40% less. This is because most of the time your infill, it doesn't really matter. If you have a really small amount of infill, like a 10% cube, and so there's not a whole lot there to begin with, you might consider slowing down so there's enough time for the filament to stick to each other. If you get going too fast, what you'll find sometimes is your filament in that infill portion will just basically crumble and be disintegrated. It just won't be that good. So that's one way, is if you find that your infills are just not quite working right on a very low infill, just decrease the speed a little bit. All right, so we don't want to mess with a bunch more there. Don't worry about travel. Let it do default. This is, for the most part, you want to enable your cooling fan and let it set to what it needs to set. You may find you need to change that if for some reason you're having some performance problems where you're having layers not connect right. You might choose to adjust those prints, that fan speed, so you can reduce temperature drop. You can read about that, but for now, don't mess with cooling. Let that be set at default. And then this is the big one where we talk about supports. We've talked about this already, but no support is just no click, and then generate supports. And now here's the difference between the two. I promise we're getting near the end. Oh gosh, what can we do here? What looks good? Let's do this one. This might work. Maybe. Let's do this. Let's do... All right, so here's what we want to do. We want to add, obviously the way it was orientated, this thing prints without supports. Because my printer can handle these circles, no big deal. But this piece here, it can't do. So if you flip it upside down, it prints without supports. But let's just pretend that this actually has a bottom on it, and you don't want supports going down the center, and you flip it this way. Let's see what happens. So when you click supports, there's two things. Let's talk about the second one first, and that's the placement. So we have touching build plate and everywhere. Watch what happens now. This is a mess. Man, it's slicing. It's got a pretty big model. Lots for it to think and to configure. Again, you can look at the support pattern, line versus grid versus triangles, and read about the difference on those patterns. And there's a bunch of them over there. It's not the only three. They all have various different pros and cons, and you go online and a million people will say a million different things. I personally have found that lines, when there's enough lines come off pretty easy. Let's see. This one also at times will come off pretty easy, but you'll just have to get out there and try them, see which one works best for you. Wow, this has taken a long time to slice. Got to hang in there though. So one of the things you're like, wow, why it's taking so long? Remember, has to configure a code for each X, Y, and Z axis to lay filament. So not only do you have this big, huge print, which is almost the entire size of the print surface and the print volume, now you're adding in all the supports to fill in. So you're fixing to see where all this extra stuff gets added. That's actually a pretty big. Let's stop, because this is taking quite a bit of time. Let's take that down by 50%, so its computing process is smaller. Let's go back down. Whoa. Whoops. Well, we got to get way back, don't we? All right, so I Control Z'd, and now let's just take this down 25%. All right, now let's slice it. See if we can get through that a little bit quicker, so we can still have the same lesson, just not in such a gigantic version. Okay, wonderful. All right, so I want you to take a look here and see all of this stuff here in this light color is the supports that's been put in there. All right. We don't need supports in here for this to print good. So what's going to happen is it's going to take us forever to clean out all of that extra filament, and it's a waste of time and a waste of money. That's 3 hours and 18 minutes. So let's change that to touching the build plate. So anything that's not touching the build plate will get supports. This is the one that we use the most in 3D printing because we designed it to go the other way. Now, there are still a few places that it decided to add supports, but about an hour less, and then a lot of these holes are empty. See, there's only a few columns that go up to give it a little bit of support, and this is the one that we would use if we were going to print it that way. Okay, let's get rid of supports. All right, let's talk about, I think that's everything I wanted to show you in supports. Oh, well, I'm not going to, let's just pop, well, no. Let's just do it right here. Support structure, these are normal, these are trees. Trees is a newer type. It's supposed to be easier to remove. It just really depends on your printer, but you get a choice. It has less contact with the print, so it doesn't damage your print as bad. Let's get rid of that. Let's finish up with bed adhesion. There are 3 things. If we're making something that's super, oh gosh, I got to get rid of this. I got to get something small. We're going to be here forever. Let's just do this. Let's do this. Okay. All right, let's look at a raft. So a raft is like going down the river. It's a raft. So they build a protective layer. So if you are it's really important that this bottom layer here doesn't get damaged, because oftentimes when it sits on the build plate, it could get a texture damage. It could lift up a little bit. It could mushroom. A lot of things can happen. So when we build a raft, we protect it, and it's going to give the most protection to the piece, but it's going to take the longest to print at 47 minutes. We're going to move to brim. And these are different tools. So now you look, we've dropped down to 29 minutes. These are tools that help, especially small pieces like this, stick to the build plate. If there's a lot of small little jags that come out of here, that's going to make a big difference. So this here is the brim. It actually goes all the way up to the edge of the print, and it oftentimes can be a problem taking off. This might leave a trail all the way around you'd have to work off with the knife. If you've made your 3D print job, and there's a good view of them, all three of them. If you've made your 3D print job where it sticks well to the plate, then the skirt, then this is what I use the most. The skirt then just puts a skirt around it. And this is a good way for the printer to kind of like get in the routine of printing. That means the filament that's in there, making sure there's no filament from the color before, making sure that we've got a nice consistent flow. And I normally change this. This is a skirt count. I normally change this between 3 and 5. So that will be 3 revolutions around the part before, see, 1, 2, 3, before it starts to print my part. All right. And of course, you don't have to have any at all. You can go none, and you can just print that sucker right on the bed if that's what you choose to do. And then I guess I will pop into experimental just real quick to show you the print and sequence. We talked about print and sequence before. And I think that's the only other ones I really need to go over. Those are all the basic steps. So once you've got that done, this is here has been sliced. It's ready to save to your disk when you get ready to go print it. And then you just put your disk in the printer and away you go. All right, so that's a big, long 45-minute or so discussion on slicing with a 3D slicer. And I will send out a assignment that has you put something into Cura and do a couple of things to it just to make yourself familiar with it. And that'll, between this video that you have to painstakingly watch and the assignment, that's all you're going to do for this week. All right, thank you. We will see you later.